Order, order. Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Robertson to move the motion.
Thank you, Dr Morrison. Can I say, as ever, what a pleasure it is to see you in the chair today. I beg to move that this House has considered E-petition 764785 relating to support for the ceramics industry. And before I get going, I'd like to declare that I am a member of the General and Municipal Boilermakers Union, the GMB. It is a particular pleasure to introduce this debate as a ceramics MP and to add my full-throated support to the petition and its aims. My constituency, Lichfield, Burntwood and the Villages, is home to Armitage Shanks, a company that has been manufacturing bathroom ware in the village of Armitage, from which it takes its name, for more than 200 years. And the identity of that village is inextricably tied up with that company. But sadly, my constituents will fully recognise the petition's characterisation of a struggling ceramics sector. Because like so many of our British ceramics businesses, Armitage Shanks, despite the best efforts and hard work of the brilliant staff that they have there, has been suffering. Earlier this year, the firm, now owned by Villeroy & Boch, a German manufacturer, was forced to close one of the kilns at its site in a bid to keep the business internationally competitive. That closure has had a real impact on the community. 100 jobs were lost as a result. And it is a reminder that when we see heritage ceramics brands struggling, it's not just about our country's manufacturing history, it's not just about the heritage of the areas that support those businesses, but it's about present-day jobs, skills and livelihoods. I visited the site up in Armitage multiple times in recent months, and the concerns that I've heard over and over and over again from workers there and from their union, the GMB, fully echo this petition. Because the job losses at Armitage Shanks are sadly just one example of the pressures that the sector faces. In 2025, we lost 2 ceramics firms in Stoke-on-Trent, the Royal Stafford and Heraldic Pottery, a blow that went right to the heart of that city's identity. Last month, the final pieces of pottery rolled off the production lines at Denbigh in Derbyshire, which was a sad moment for many people, but especially my honourable friend for Amber Valley. In March, the iconic British brand known around the world for quality manufacture and design entered administration, and the collapse of Denbigh has also led to more than 100 skilled workers losing their jobs. And it is thanks to one of them, Hayley, who I'm very glad to see in the public gallery today, that we are here debating this motion today. I really would like to congratulate her on her first week in a new position that she's found elsewhere, but I'm sure that she would have liked to have come to that through rather better circumstances. I'm also sure that I speak for all honourable and right honourable members in the room today when I say that British ceramics is richer I will be able to finish the sentence in a minute. I'm going to go back to that line. I'm sure I speak for all honourable and right honourable members when I say that British ceramics is richer for retaining her experience and passion within the industry. Yeah. Hayley's petition could not be more timely. And when we met ahead of this debate to discuss her concerns, they echoed the worries that I hear from constituents, businesses and unions in my area, that I and other ceramics MPs gathered here today have been pressing the government on. I am actually not surprised to see so many honourable members joining us today, because indeed almost 110,000 people have signed Hayley's petition, and more than 10% of those signatories come from just 7 constituencies. This is an issue that is very much centred on Staffordshire, Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, and people in our areas care deeply about this. Hayley's petition recognises that much of the ceramics sector in our country is in crisis. Soaring industrial energy costs have left businesses at the risk of imminent collapse without urgent intervention, she warns. Ceramics manufacturing relies on high levels of both electricity and gas. And when those prices rise here in the UK, it puts our businesses at a competitive disadvantage on the international stage.
Will you give way on that point?
Of course I will.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way in what is clearly a very, very important debate, not only for his particular area, but also for UK manufacturing more widely. In relation to those challenges on energy costs, the ceramics industry has suffered very similar challenges to those of the critical minerals sector, specifically tin mining and processing sector in my Campbell, Reduce and Hale constituency. Does he agree with me that the government must go further and faster to replicate some of the support for critical minerals that has been afforded to the ceramics industry?
I thank my good friend and honourable friend for his intervention. He's absolutely right to raise the importance of energy costs to industry right across the United Kingdom. Ceramics, though, is the hardest to decarbonise. Ceramics is the hardest industry to decarbonise, and I think it is right that the government is looking at this, specifically given the geographical nature of it and taking that specially carved out support for ceramics. But I will be returning to that slightly later on. If we go back to that problem that was so ably diagnosed by Hayley, she's also offered a solution. And the petition calls on the government to urgently review the British Industrial Supercharger, a scheme that helps energy-intensive businesses, including steel and chemicals and paper manufacturers, with their electricity costs, and actually calls for that to be extended to the ceramics sector. Denby said during the last few months that actually relief through the Supercharger scheme would have saved them. But currently, ceramics businesses are falling through the cracks in that scheme. Now, since Hayley started this... Of course I will.
I'm very confident for giving way. And as my honourable friend for Camborne and Redruth has pointed out, the critical minerals industry more widely lacks support through BICS and the Supercharger scheme, but as does upstream China clay production, and that's a huge concern for one of the supply chain industries that supports many of my honourable friends' businesses in this room.
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. It seems like Cornwall have come mob-handed today. I'm getting it from both sides. I think they're absolutely right. And you just go back to that point about reindustrialising the nation. We've heard for so long about deindustrialised areas and former industrial areas, and actually it's fantastic to see the government continuing to talk and continuing to drive about reindustrialising our areas and bringing high-skilled, high-quality unionised jobs back to our communities where they belong to, where they deserve to be. Returning to ceramics, though, since this petition was started, the government has recognised the challenge facing the ceramics sector specifically and pledged a £120 million package in targeted support. That funding is hugely welcome, but we all know that funding alone is not enough. And a lot now hangs on the design of that scheme, ensuring that the money is delivered quickly, that it's well targeted at the companies that most need it and the companies that it's going to be able to protect the most jobs. And crucially, actually, that it's simple for firms to apply. Some of the ceramics firms that we talk about do employ large numbers of people, but they don't have significant back offices where they're going to be able to go through very, very complex and heavy administrative processes in order to be able to access the scheme. So whilst it's important that we get it right and that companies are asked for the right information to be able to support that, it's also crucial that we don't create an administrative barrier where one doesn't need to be. I know that myself and other honourable friends here today will continue to work on this alongside the GMB, other unions and, of course, the government. We must ensure that funding helps bolster and secure this industry for the long term rather than simply kicking the can down the road. And that brings me to why supporting this sector is so important. And all of us here today know this, but I will never miss the opportunity to remind a minister. Ceramic manufacturing goes to the heart of the identity in our counties. So many ceramics firms take their names from the towns, villages and areas where they are based. They've made those places famous around the world. I in fact spoke to one honourable member who had used an Armitage Shanks toilet in Samoa. And that is a very powerful form of soft power, if people will excuse a rather crude pun. Ceramics manufacturing jobs powered our economies, and like Stoke-on-Trent is literally known as the potteries, and if I don't mention it, I'm not sure I'll be allowed to leave here. But just as the closure of mines struck at the identity of the towns that supported them, including places like Stoke-on-Trent, deindustrialisation has hurt our communities. Ceramics speaks to a proud tradition of world-class manufacturing in our counties. But as I've said already, it's not just about the past, it's about the present and the future. It's about providing jobs for people where at the end of the day, they can go out and they can look and they can have the sense of satisfaction of looking at a pallet of whatever they've produced and knowing that that was their job today and they've made something from there. It is a proud tradition and one that we should not want to avoid, and one I want to see that we should, not one that we should want to see pass into the past. Ceramics is, in order to support that soft power, those iconic British brands need to know that they can have a supporter in our government. And I would really like to see our public procurement work much harder to make sure that they are championing the very best of British and actually the very best of international ceramics, because the very best of international ceramics comes from the Midlands of the UK. And I will defend that hill until there is no breath left in my lungs. It is entirely possible that our public procurement should be used to support ceramics, and I think it would be fantastic that every embassy should be stocked with ceramics made in Britain, and again, they're all behind me. Every public building should be looking at whether they can support British-made ceramics in their sanitary ware. The list goes much further than that. I'd also like to take the opportunity here to draw attention to the private members bill introduced by my honourable friend, the member for Stoke-on-Trent Central, which I am supporting. That bill relates to backstamping the Made in Britain mark, so that we can indeed make sure that when something says Made in Britain, it is from Britain, and it is the highest quality that people should be able to expect. Currently, firms can import ceramics cheaply made elsewhere, glaze them here, refire them and stamp them as British, and being able to support that supply chain through not only public procurement, but also for with that backstamping bill would be very important. Wider than that, though, we do need to come back to the supercharger. Ceramics is an energy-intensive industry. It relies on high inputs of electricity and gas, but electricity prices here in the UK are higher than in many of our competitive countries, and that takes a toll on the industry. And it does mean that this supercharger scheme is so important. Entry to that scheme is based on what's known as a SIC code, an SIC code, and they're the categories that government use to classify businesses and identify what they do. The SIC codes in use for ceramics are not currently eligible for the scheme, but worse still, because of the way the scheme is funded, ceramics businesses are actually being levied to pay for other high energy businesses to be subsidised, because if you don't receive the supercharger, you are paying for other people to get it. Ahead of this debate, I met with Ceramics UK, the Industry Association, GMB Union, the Trade Union Congress, as well as Energy UK. And one of the concerns that came through was that the SIC codes are not necessarily being properly applied. And if you look at the number of the businesses that government counts in ceramics, it's far higher than the number that the actual sector recognises. And hopefully that's good news for ministers, because if we can get those codes altered correctly, then we can actually see that there'll be fewer ceramics businesses in need of that support, and it will help a headache in the Treasury. So firstly, we can look at tightening up the SIC codes, we can extend the supercharger to those codes, and we can ensure that the supercharger scheme is properly funded by the Treasury and not by other businesses, so that general taxation can support these jobs. Beyond the supercharger, which is undoubtedly vital for ceramics, the government has committed and recognises that the industry needs tailored support, and I would ask ministers to look closely at the specific pressures that the sector is facing. As well as high electricity inputs, ceramics does use a huge amount of gas, and whilst the cost of gas in Britain is internationally competitive, prices are highly volatile because of a lack of storage, etc., in the United Kingdom. If we could look at some form of supporting gas storage or some other mechanism to smooth peaks and troughs in gas pricing, it would help support ceramics businesses with their long-term planning and help them look at their decarbonisation processes too. On decarbonisation, hydrogen gas is a promising alternative, but hydrogen kiln technology requires further investment, and if we can't pipe that gas in, there will be serious supply problems. Some of these ceramics manufacturers run their kilns 24/7, 365, and the idea that hydrogen is going to be brought in by lorries just doesn't stack up. So in order to support that, we can use revenues from carbon levies to support that transition and protect those manufacturing jobs, both for today and for the future. So to conclude, and I have gone slightly over what I was aiming to, there will be many other honourable and right honourable members here and eager to support and make the case for this industry. So I will draw to a close, but I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Ceramics UK, GMB, TUC and Energy UK for meeting me, to Hayley for spurring today's important debate, but also to every single one of those workers who goes out day after day and produces fantastic, high quality and some of the best ceramics in the world right here in the UK.
The question is that this House has considered E-petition 764785 relating to support for the ceramics industry. Lots of interest in this, colleagues. I'm imposing an indicative time limit of 4 minutes, please, an exemplar of which will be Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And, I'd like to congratulate my constituency neighbour in securing this debate. As probably one of a few people who is a Member of Parliament that worked in the ceramics industry, for me, this isn't just about jobs. It's actually about who we are. It's about identity. It's about what it means to actually make something that is so tangible, so real, and that can make a difference. And it does make a difference to our economy. It contributes £2 billion to our economy. It contributes to our economy in £600 million worth of exports, where we are in a country that, sadly, Mr. Chairman, exports too little. And it is a tragedy that we are in a situation where we see, because ceramics isn't just cups and saucers, plates and bowls. It's the tiles on our homes, it's the bricks. And I've got some amazing ceramics businesses in my constituency, whether that's Dunoon, Lucidian, Amric, and of course Ibstock, which makes the iconic Staffordshire blue brick. But it is crazy that we're in a situation where we're seeing bricks imported from India, from Turkey, from the Netherlands into this country. And actually British manufacturers who are employing British people, providing British exports, are being priced out of this market. And I would like to point out that the core issue here is energy costs. Energy costs first, second, and third. Now, it would be disingenuous of me not to thank the government for action it has taken in order to support the ceramics sector. But we will continue to see a decline in ceramics unless we address that core issue of energy. Now, the government has made important steps in terms of addressing this issue. The steps in terms of actually the supercharger are important. But the reality is, in ceramics, only 10% of ceramics businesses are able to apply for that. And that's for the simple reason is that gas isn't included, or not in the way that they are able to access it. And 86% of the cost of energy for ceramics manufacturers isn't electricity, it's gas. And this isn't through choice. It is actually through necessity in order to be able to make the product. They're not sat there thinking, I don't want to do the transition to electricity. They cannot make that transition. And hydrogen, as the Honourable Member for Lichfield rightly pointed out, is not going to be able to come to the rescue in order to save those jobs. Mr. Chairman, I'm very conscious that so many people want to contribute. So I will just sort of ask the Minister. I know that he is incredibly knowledgeable on this sector and he has a real passion for this sector as well. So I would really urge him to look at setting out a timetable for review of extending the supercharger so that it can cover gas costs. If he isn't able to do this, if we are not able to get the support that is required, we are sadly going to see more British businesses going under and more British manufacturing businesses no longer manufacturing, no longer exporting, and firms from across the sea stepping into that gap. And that is not something that anyone wants to see, whether that is in Staffordshire or across the United Kingdom.
Lindsay Farnsworth.
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Dr. Murison. I congratulate my friend for Lichfield for presenting this debate and my constituent Hayley who brought this petition, and I declare that I'm also a member of GMB Union. While the petition speaks to the wider issues facing the ceramics sector, it was set up, as you've heard, following the devastating news that Denby Pottery, the largest employer in my constituency, was entering administration. It's nearly 110,000 signatures, 3,900 of those from Amber Valley, and thanks to my constituents for signing it. The signatures are a testament to the national significance, rich history and enduring popularity of Denby Pottery, handcrafted using clay from the very site on which the company was founded. Throughout its 217 years, the pottery has remained committed to local craftsmanship, even as competitors offshored production to mass-produce goods more cheaply. That commitment inspired extraordinary loyalty, with many in the local area having worked there for decades and even generations. Yet despite its world-class reputation, Denby Pottery struggled financially. It's previously been through administration, and more recent global shocks in energy markets placed further pressure on manufacturing costs. That's why I worked with Hayley to produce the petition, which calls for the ceramics sector, as you've heard, to be included in the British Industry Supercharger scheme. Okay. In the months that followed, I met repeatedly with ministers and officials, including raising Denby Pottery's situation directly with the Prime Minister. He committed to a full review of the Supercharger scheme across all sectors, but understanding the need for a more immediate intervention for Denby Pottery and the sector more widely, the Chancellor acted decisively and announced a bespoke package of £120 million for ceramics. I'd like to thank those who worked tirelessly to produce this, including Ceramics UK, GMB Union, colleagues here today, the Treasury, the Minister for Industry and the Secretary of State for Business and Trade. Heartbreakingly, and in spite of that support, we now know investors were ultimately unable to view Denby Pottery as a viable business proposition. So I'm now refocusing my efforts towards fighting for a different future, working with government, the administrators, local businesses and any future purchaser of the site to maximise opportunities for good quality jobs in Amber Valley. Alongside this, I'm clear that Denby's heritage must be preserved. The on-site museum told the story of more than 2 centuries of innovation and industry, and I commend the excellent work being done by Linda and others to ensure that the collection will be enjoyed for generations to come. Denby Pottery has many legacies, ranging from the nationally significant to the deeply personal. Its heritage, its skilled and committed workforce, and the pottery itself, treasured, gifted at weddings, and passed down through generations. But today, its legacy must live on in the lessons learned from its closure and in the changes that it catalysed so that other ceramics companies can continue and thrive. I therefore urge the Minister to continue working with industry to ensure that UK ceramics manufacturers can compete on a level playing field, and this includes insulating the sector from unfair competition such as the dumping of heavily subsidised products from overseas markets. The public want to back British business and manufacturing, a point illustrated by the incredibly moving scale of the support behind the #SaveDenby campaign. In this regard, I'd like to pay tribute to the campaign led by my honourable friend, the member for Stoke-on-Trent Central, for clearer country of origin labelling. I hope the government will support his private member's bill in that regard. Chair, on this point, to any potential purchaser of the brand of Denby Pottery alone, I say this: if your produce is not made in Denby, using clay extracted from the ground in Denby Village, handcrafted by the people of Denby, then regardless of the name stamped upon it, it will never be recognised as true Denby pottery.
Thank you. Jamie Stone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morrison. It's a pleasure to serve under chairmanship, and I congratulate the honourable member for securing this debate, and also my good friend and colleague on the Petitions Committee, the honourable member for Lichfield, for an excellent introduction to this debate. The honourable member for Lichfield talks about his wares, armated shanks. I would venture to suggest that armated shanks products are seen in some of the great houses the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. Now, you may wonder what is a member from the north of Scotland doing on his feet in this debate, but the fact is that we have 2 ceramic companies in my constituency, namely Antwerp in Fern, owned by Alachi and Annie Stewart, whose products you will see in Dumfries House, a place not unfamiliar to His Majesty the King. And secondly, also Lochinver, Highland Stoneware based in Lochinver, owned by Mr. David Grant. You'll see their wares in Balmoral, and we are very, very proud of this. Now, the point about what I'm saying is that these companies actually teach local skills where otherwise they would not be taught, vital local skills. Secondly, they are jobs in some of the remotest areas of the United Kingdom. And thirdly, they provide a tourist product, which is absolutely crucial when it comes to visitors. People come to the north of Scotland, and I would say to honourable and right honourable members, when you please do come to my part of the world, come and see Anta's fine ceramics in the village of Fern, come and see Highland Stoneware in Loch-Inver. You won't be disappointed. I really wouldn't dare to compete with Stoke-on-Trent in terms of quality, but we're very proud of what we do. And Dr. Morrison, I'm going to keep my contribution very short because I want to make one point. It's not really pertinent to the Minister, but these fledgling and now actually grown-up companies very much would not have come into being if it hadn't been for a key decision taken by Harold Wilson's Labour government in the 1960s, which was to put in place the Highlands and Islands Development Board. This was to encourage enterprise in some of the remotest parts of the UK and to actually halt and indeed reverse the depopulation that was the curse of some of the remotest parts of Scotland. That was a great success story, and I give credit to where it was due. However, this success story is not today what it once was. This, I warn you, Dr. Morrison, is a political point, political point, but sadly, under the stewardship of the present Scottish Government, the Highlands and Islands Development Board, now Highlands and Islands Enterprise, is a shadow of what its parent once upon a time was, and I think that this is a great pity, and while it is not doesn't the responsibility of the Minister or indeed the UK Government, I give due notice that this is a matter I shall continue to raise in the future. Thank you very much for your forbearance.
Incredibly brief, and not everybody's going to get in at this rate, so 3.5 minutes, please. Indicative limit. Gareth Snell.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Morrison. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Can I actually thank the honourable gentleman from Caithness, Sutherland and Lisa Ross for participating in this debate, because what he actually demonstrates is something that we've tried to make clear throughout our lobbying on this, that this is not a Stoke-on-Trent issue. Yes, we are the home, the spiritual home of the pottery industry, but you will find a ceramics manufacturer in most parts of this country making something beautiful out of dirt, essentially, turning clay into art. So the fact that he was able to share that story is very helpful in articulating the points that we're trying to make. And Dr. Morrison, I'd also like to congratulate Hayley for starting the petition. I'd like to declare my membership of the GMB and also my chairmanship of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Ceramics. I also want to put on record my thanks to Rob Fellow from Ceramics UK, as well as Sharon Yates and Chris Hu from the GMB for their sterling work in leading a campaign that's got us to this point today. And as was said by the honourable gentleman from Stone, this is an industry that employs 20,000 people, £2 billion worth to the economy, £600 million worth of exports. It actually makes it bigger than the fishing industry, and yet the emotive connection to it as a country is not quite as great. So we've still got some work to do, and I'm grateful that the honourable gentleman did pick up on my ceramics country of origin bill. I genuinely believe there is a market around the world for quality ware made in the UK. We know it from the advancements that Port Merion tell me about some of the markets they're looking at for, and potentially bringing work back to the UK for that purpose. We know it from some of the companies in Stoke-on-Trent who talk about where they export and the value of that export because of that mark on the bottom that says made in Stoke-on-Trent. And I hope the Minister can continue in the constructive conversation with me that we've had so far to see how we get that bill over the line within this session. I want to talk about not just the history, because although we are a city that looks at our history and we take it very seriously, I'm proud to have H.E. Smith, a tile manufacturer in my constituency that makes tiles for the London Underground and is celebrating their 100th year this year. I have Emma Bridgewater, who make incredibly well-known stoneware. I have Port Merion. I have Halcyon Days that make giftware for the House of Law shops. And you know, the city also gave this place Duchess China. And of course, if you walk on any of the tiles that are Minton, they're made about a mile from where I live. That is the history that we've contributed, but the sector has so much more to offer. You cannot make steel in this country without refractory-grade ceramics. You cannot build houses in this country without the bricks. And I would say to the Minister, as my honourable friend has tried to do from Newcastle-under-Lyme, if we are going to have Homes England subsidise the building of homes in this country, can we please mandate that they buy British bricks with that subsidy? It is a huge benefit of taxpayers' money going into a British industry to protect British jobs using a British product. There are obviously also advanced ceramics that we use for defence, for nuclear and for medical technologies, which are leading the way in which we treat people, the way we defend our country, and the way that we do some of that green technology advancement. Because as the Minister and I have often discussed, decarbonisation should not mean deindustrialisation, and the ceramic sector is a clear example of where if we get that right, we can show that it works for that proof of concept. But finally, Dr. Morrison, what I would like to talk about briefly is CBAM is an issue. We've got to get that right. The carbon border adjustment mechanism potentially puts the ceramic sector at risk. We are at danger of carbon leakage, and yet that is not recognised as part of the scheme coming forward. As was mentioned by my honourable friend from Amber Valley, the dumping of Chinese ware is a problem. So can he look at the way the Trade Remedy Authority looks at the calculations for injury, and can he make sure that in the supercharger scheme that we were debating on Thursday in the German debate, that ceramics is included to protect those jobs for the future?
I'm calling front bench at 2 minutes to, so do the maths, folks. Adam Joji.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morrison. I'm grateful to my honourable friend for Lichfield for opening this debate. It's fitting that it was opened by a good, loud and honourable Staffordshire voice. It could be no other way. And like him, I declare an interest as a very proud member of the GMB. This debate is personal for those of us who call Staffordshire the best county in England our home. So thank you, Hayley, for allowing us to be here today. Newcastle and Lyme and North Staffordshire are at the heart of the British and worldwide ceramics industry. They always have been and they always will be. I welcome the ceramics industry support package, £120 million of real and meaningful support for businesses like Silverdale Bathrooms and Ipswich Brickworks in Chesterton. We fought hard for this support, hunting as a pack, a Staffordshire pack with a little bit of Derbyshire and Leicestershire thrown in, alongside the mighty union movement and, as my honourable friend from Stoke Central said, Ceramics UK. And I want to thank the Minister, my honourable friend, who's been a real champion and a solid ally in this effort. For generations, people in my community in Newcastle and Lyme have produced the very best British products with skill, with smarts, experience and talent. Their work has powered and fuelled our local and national economies. There will be a theme, Mr. Dr. Morrison, in all the speeches that are given this evening. We welcome the £120 million, but we want to know that that package of support will be quickly and speedily available, and widely available at that too. There will be asks of the government to properly step up and ensure that this age-old and successful industry is protected. There will be calls to ensure that we train and equip our young people in Newcastle and Lyme and across our country with the skills necessary to enter and thrive in this most important industry. And there will be the important demand that our communities are no longer ignored, forgotten or left behind. As I say, Dr. Morrison, Team Staffordshire hunts as a pack in all parties, and that can be seen tonight. For too long, our communities home to the ceramics industry were let down and left behind by the powerful few, and we are here to change that, and change that we are. I'm the third generation of my family to call Staffordshire home, and I've seen up close the powerful impact the ceramics industry has had on our part of the world. I can see its potential to do so in the future, but that requires us to act. Out of all the sectors that once powered and thrived in our industrial heartland, ceramics, despite building our homes, schools and hospitals, has been left behind. We need urgent action on energy bills and the costs associated for businesses in the ceramics industry. We need to ensure that this industry is at the heart of our trade agenda, and we need to redouble our efforts to ensure that we buy British every step of the way. That's why I brought my British Bricks Bill to Parliament, and will continue to push that agenda. The most important point that we must all remember, Dr. Morrison, tonight is simple. The ceramics industry can flourish, it can thrive, and it can continue to lead the world, but it requires the state to act. We aren't asking to be bailed out, we're asking to get the same level of commitment that other industries have received in recent months. The growth potential is massive in this industry, in communities like mine and in our national economy too. So I ask my honourable friend, the Minister, to remember now and in the months and years ahead, because we won't be going away and will not stop making the case for the ceramics industry, which has brought such pride and opportunity to communities in the industrial heartlands like mine in Newcastle and Lyme.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Dr. Morrison. Ceramics are who we are in North Staffordshire. It's in our DNA. It's in the bottle kilns on our skyline, the names above our factory gates, and literally in the hands of the people I proudly represent. Yet for years, people in our communities were told the same story, that the industries which built our city belong in the past. That globalisation meant towns like ours simply had to accept decline whilst investment flowed elsewhere. Now, in May, this Labour government tore up that narrative when it announced the £120 million support and growth package. It happened because our Labour government listened to me, my North Staffordshire colleagues and the GMB union. And I want to pay particular tribute to Sharon Yates, a GMB member who's with us today. Sharon has been absolutely integral to winning this support. Now, in my constituency, Dr. Morrison, we know better than most about what's at stake because we've lived it. In less than 2 years, 3 fantastic companies in my constituency faced an uncertain future. At Moorcroft, I supported workers at risk of redundancy alongside Sharon. And I'm not too proud to say that my emotions got the better of me as I listened to the worries of the 30 workers in that room who collectively had amassed over 800 years of craftsmanship, skills and talents between them. At Royal Stafford, we did the same. Again, hundreds of years of skills and talents at risk. Now, these meetings were tough and they were emotional, but they reaffirmed to me the importance of why we had to keep fighting for our pots. Because if these companies were allowed to go, with them would also go the skills and talents of our workforce. And then more recently, Burley, the country's oldest Victorian pot bank, was at risk following Denby, its owners, falling into administration. But out there, people know our industry needs protection, and people know it has a future. Step forward Will Moorcroft, the founder's grandson, Cornish Ware, who stepped in, taking over the Royal Stafford site, and Christopher Bailey, who transformed Burberry pottery into a global fashion brand, who amassed a team of investors to keep Burley's kilns firing. The prize is now long-term sustainability, an industry that stands permanently on a level playing field. As I look to wind up now, I have two specific questions to pose to the Minister. Recently, I met with a number of smaller ceramics companies in my constituency. They're incredibly pleased with the support package, but can the Minister confirm that all companies, both large and small, will benefit from the £120 million package, and will he please come and meet with those companies in my area? Secondly, the government can do more to support our local companies by ensuring that the UK government, its departments and embassies around the world buy British. Therefore, can the Minister look to extend plans for procurement so that Stokey plates, cups and saucers are the only ones we see when we flip them over anywhere we go? To close, I'm grateful to the Minister because, quite frankly, he understands the sector. We'll keep fighting for more as we always have. Ceramics is who we are and our story is far from finished.
Dr. Alison Gardner.
Thank you, Dr. Morrison, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I thank all the people who signed this petition and commend the hard work by my honourable friend for Amber Valley and all who fought hard for Denby and indeed for all our ceramics industry. In Stoke-on-Trent South, factories like Wedgwood in 1882 have crafted bespoke projects for centuries. Duchess China produces the cups and saucers used here in Parliament. Susan Rose supplied tableware for Number 10, and Caverswald China craft pieces for Buckingham Palace. It is no wonder that so many of my constituents take great pride from working in the pots, and I see that we have pottery workers here today, including my constituent Sharon Yates, who created the Potters Pledge led by G&B, and I encourage all to sign it to combat the issue of fakes and dumping. Since being elected, I, along with all my colleagues, have repeatedly raised the importance of ceramic sectors in North Staffordshire to ministers, not only to safeguard our tableware sector and proud potters' heritage, but also the strategic value of advanced ceramics, which I am pleased now to see included in the British Industrial Competitive Scheme. Regrettably, companies have faced real challenges. Brexit disrupted trade, there's been an influx of imported knockoffs, and energy prices have shot up following the war in Ukraine and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And I know this petition asks that ceramics is included in the supercharger scheme, and that is an understandable ask, but it does not solely answer all of the challenges faced by the sector, nor does it address the future sustainability and the need for transition to low-carbon alternatives. That is why I have previously asked the government to introduce what I dubbed an Industry Energy Innovation Fund for gas-intensive industries, as well as funding the capital investment for new technology, whether it be electric, biofuel or hydrogen kilns. Such a fund would provide grants or loans to companies to explore process emissions reduction, AI-enabled process optimization and processes to recover waste heat and improve energy efficiency. And this is why I was delighted that the government announced a £120 million fund to support the sector in May. Following this announcement, I asked the Chancellor to clarify the purpose of this fund was to support decarbonisation and innovation, and to confirm that it was indeed to help the sector tackle energy costs, improve energy efficiency and create a sustainable future. And alongside Lucidian and Fisk, I want to thank the Henry Royce Institute and David Knowles, TUC, G&B and Russell Hall at Warwick Manufacturing Group for working alongside me to develop proposals as to how we can deliver a sustainable, energy efficient future using this fund. But I do ask the Minister if he would ensure that the consultation regarding the design of this fund, as well as the Excellent Ceramics UK who work so hard, includes experts such as those mentioned above, as well as a variety of SMEs and organisations such as Make UK and Glass Futures.
Was it 3 minutes or 2.5? As we've already heard today, the ceramics industry is a vital part of Britain's manufacturing heritage and economic future. It supports thousands of skilled jobs, sustains local communities, strengthens domestic supply chains, and contributes significantly to our economy. These are highly skilled jobs, and preserving that expertise must remain a national priority. But like other energy-intensive industries, including in my mid-Cheshire constituency, the ceramics sector has faced significant pressure from high energy costs. Manufacturers are competing in a global marketplace while dealing with energy prices that are often far higher than those faced by international competitors. Those pressures have placed additional strain on businesses that are already working hard to invest, innovate and plan for the future. And that is why tackling high energy costs and supporting the decarbonisation of energy-intensive industries must go hand in hand. These objectives are not in conflict. If we're serious about delivering net zero while maintaining a strong industrial base, we must ensure that the transition protects jobs, skills and domestic production rather than driving investment overseas. While the ceramics industry is concentrated in places such as Staffordshire, the challenges it faces are not unique. In the northwest, energy-intensive industries are grappling with the same pressures of high energy costs, international competition, and the need to decarbonise. The question we face is whether we allow these industries to decline with the resultant impact on the communities around them, or whether we provide them with the tools they need to remain competitive. Hydrogen is one of the tools that we can help achieve that. It offers a credible pathway to reducing emissions from high-temperature industrial processes where electrification is not an option, while preserving the skilled jobs and manufacturing capability on which communities depend. We can already see that potential here in the UK through the development of the hydrogen cluster in Cheshire. Although centred on the industrial clusters of the North West and North Wales, this project demonstrates what hydrogen can achieve for hard-to-abate sectors across the United Kingdom, helping manufacturers reduce emissions while remaining competitive and attracting future investment. Whether or not we can realise that potential across the wider North West, Staffordshire and indeed the country as a whole is now the key question, because we stand at a crossroads as we await publication of the updated hydrogen strategy. I hope that we make the right choice to bring forward a strategy that backs our industries for which hydrogen is the only option, crucially wherever they are in the country, not simply by picking winners and losers. The North West has seen too many manufacturing sites close in recent years. We cannot afford to lose more industrial jobs, skills and investment. I therefore hope ministers will publish the updated hydrogen strategy at the earliest opportunity and bring forward a hydrogen network that delivers for the communities we represent. If we get this right, we'll not only support industrial decarbonisation, we'll support skilled jobs, unlock private investment and help ensure that British manufacturing continues to thrive for generations to come.
Dr. Simon Offer.
Thank you, Chair, and can I thank the member for Lichfield for his excellent opening speech. My remarks today will be slightly different. They'll focus on studio pottery. This is ceramics made on an individual basis, with each piece unique and handmade. Studio pottery is actually growing in popularity in this country, following programmes such as the Great Pottery Throwdown. There are literally thousands of makers up and down the country, and the industry in its own right is worth about £50 million. Pottery and potters are as old as the human race, and although it might not be said to be the oldest profession, it's certainly one of the earliest. And Chair, Britain leads the world in modern studio pottery, which was largely started by Bernard Leach and the Japanese master Hamada in St Ives in Cornwall. Many of his techniques came from traditional Japanese techniques and favoured an apprenticeship system. More contemporary and well-known potters such as Grayson Perry and Keith Brymer-Jones have all grown from this movement. However, making a living from pottery remains really tough. Price of clay and energy have increased, and most potters earn well below the minimum wage. The Arts Council could really help individual potters, specifically at the beginning of their career, and this would help nurture this industry. And also a reduction in VAT on clay would really help small producers. Also, the way apprenticeships and mentoring are run by the HMRC needs a more creative attitude to help in this industry. In Stroud, we have very long-running pottery, such as Lansdowne pottery, as well as the newer Stroud pottery, and the clay loft in Nailsworth provides studio space and tuition for a very popular art form. Stroud Market provides an excellent place to sell these pots. So, but
on that point, would you, the Honourable give
I will. I will certainly give way. Thank you.
I'm grateful to the honourable member for giving way, and he's making an excellent speech about the importance of continuing the skills and the heritage. Would the honourable member join me in congratulating Fran, Kate and Daisy, who were employees of Denby Pottery, who have recently set up the Potter's Nook in Ripley, where people in my constituency and beyond can go to learn the skills needed for the pottery sector.
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for her intervention, and certainly developing these potters, these young potters, is really essential for the ceramics industry in general, particularly in studio pottery. And can I just say, as a GP, that the therapeutic effects of clay are really well documented. I began introducing arts in my surgery in 2001 using ceramics and clay led by Karen Hilliard, but helped to relieve stress in patients. And I'd also like to pay tribute to Jeremy Seward and Petra Reynolds, who work at Wobbridge Pottery and have remained an inspiration. But I can't finish without mentioning my daughter, Martha, who makes a living from selling her unique pottery in Stroud Market. And although she'll never be rich, she continues to inspire me and many around her with her functional and exquisite ceramics. So, to conclude, this country should be proud of its world-famous studio pottery industry that brings employment and joy to so many people. We must do all we can to support this industry and its people.
Campbell.
Thank you, Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship today. I'd like to congratulate the member for Lichfield on securing this debate and for his opening remarks. His strength of feeling and that shown by petitioners, including nearly 800 in my constituency of Broxtowe, just demonstrates how important the ceramics and manufacturing sector is and remains to communities like mine and across the country. And I'd also like to declare that I am a proud member of the GMB. Yeah. The government has rightly identified advanced manufacturing as a strategic priority for its modern industry strategy. Manufacturing accounts for nearly 15% of the East Midlands economy, a greater share than any other region in England. The £120 million support package for the UK ceramics industry is a welcome example of this government's backing manufacturing in the Midlands, because there are over 450,000 people who are employed in manufacturing across the East Midlands, a significant portion within the ceramics industry, but in other industries and manufacturing industries as well. These are not just jobs, they represent generations of expertise, craftsmanship, industrial knowledge that have been passed down through families and communities of working people across generations. And Broxtowe still bears the scars of the industrial decline. Parts of Eastwood, a former coalfield community, has never recovered from the loss of traditional industries and secure jobs that they provided. Now, Broxtowe remains a home to major manufacturers, including Reckitt's in Beeston and Corton Engineering in Moor Green. Yet in meetings with both of these companies, they highlighted challenges shared by manufacturers across the country, persistently higher energy costs and the challenge of decarbonising industrial processes while remaining competitive. These pressures are being felt now. So without action, we risk seeing further investment and jobs being moved overseas. We must ensure that British manufacturers are not placed at a competitive disadvantage. If we are serious about retaining high-value industrial jobs, businesses cannot continue to face energy costs significantly higher than those of their international counterparts and competitors. We must ensure that the infrastructure needed for industrial decarbonisation is in place. Many manufacturers are ready to electrify their operations, but are held back by constraints in local electricity networks and grid capacity. The ceramics industry has rightly highlighted these issues, but the lessons apply across the manufacturing industry. So I urge the Minister to consider expanding eligibility for energy cost relief for manufacturers that fall outside of the existing schemes, and to support investment in local electricity networks and grid capacities to enable industrial decarbonisation. By supporting energy-intensive industries and providing infrastructure they need to invest, we can protect skilled jobs, strengthen our industrial base and deliver growth in communities that have waited far too long for their share in prosperity.
Amanda Hack.
It's
It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Dr Morrison. And I thank the member for Lichfield for opening the debate. It's been a useful opportunity for us to talk about ceramics. I'm also a member of the GMB. Finally, I want to thank Hayley for the petition inspired by Denby pottery and the 504 constituents who've signed this. For more than 2 centuries, Denby represent the very best of British craftsmanship, with high-quality products, skilled jobs and a reputation recognised across the world. Such an iconic brand for the East Midlands. It's up to us as representatives to keep championing our local manufacturers now and for the future. And I know the work the member for Amber Valley has done with Denby. North West Leicestershire has a proud industrial heritage. Manufacturing remains the largest sectors of employment locally, and we're home to major ceramics employers such as Ibstock Brick. Brick is a key part of the sector. I have 3 Ibstock Brick sites, and I've been greatly pleased to meet with them on several occasions. They're quarried and fired directly in North West Leicestershire. We create bricks, a material that is used across the country and lasts for hundreds of years. They told me in recent years imported bricks have now made up about 20% of the UK brick market, yet they know that we already have the capacity to supply enough bricks for British homes for the future. Yeah. So when we talk about concern about ceramics, we need to ensure we're also putting that within the context of industries that ceramics directly supports, one of them being construction. North West Leicestershire has about 4,000 people work in the construction sector, as well as national headquarters of a number of prominent house builders. We need to be using the industry strengths that we have right on our doorsteps, British bricks, building homes so the family can thrive alongside our industry. So will the Minister set out in his response how we can make sure that UK brick manufacturers are not only supported with the challenge they face in as an industry, but given the tools to help our house building and industrial targets, and their support they need on energy costs and energy transition. Every home built creates a job, but it also creates jobs for those businesses that help create a home, filling it with pots and crockery like Denby to sanitary ware like those mentioned by my honourable friend for Lichfield. The petition is right to highlight the importance of protecting not only the jobs but the skills. Once specialist manufacturing skills are lost, they're incredibly difficult to rebuild. We must ensure that future generations have the opportunity to pursue rewarding careers in British industry. I also want to make a nod to Furnace Lane Pottery based in Moira, a local craft potter, and those are also important to this sector. The government's industrial strategy rightly recognises the importance of manufacturing, but the ceramic industry needs that targeted support. So I'd just like to ask the Minister 2 things. Making sure that 120 million gets to those businesses as quickly as possible, if you can set out a timetable in this response, and set out how government will work with industry, trade unions and local communities to ensure that British ceramics has a strong future. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to share under chair, never say this right. Serve under your chairmanship, Dr. Morrison. And I declare my interest as a member of GMB Union, but also Unite, which is representing so many of the China clay workers in my constituency. And that's one of the reasons, Chair, that I welcome so warmly this government's £120 million package for the ceramics industry. And I particularly welcome the £60 million of backing for capital investment in energy efficiency and decarbonisation, and that further £60 million to help manage rising costs, which is decisive support for a sector which has every right not just to survive but to thrive in a changing world in which governments have an absolute obligation to ensure a smooth transition. In this world, protecting the supply of China clay is vital to insulating supply chains across not just ceramics but construction, advanced manufacturing, technology and aerospace and defence. But domestic production is only truly protected for any industry when the whole supply chain is. In my constituency, upstream producers of Cornish China clay are part of that foundation of the ceramics sector, employing directly and indirectly thousands of local people in Cornwall as our strongest current mining industry, serving as a big granitic bridge between our industrial heritage and the mineral products of the future. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the Minister for his excellent leadership in this sector, his lucid understanding of those supply chains, and that minerals represent quite clearly the biggest Cornwall-specific growth engine in the years ahead, and I thank him for the work that he's doing together with his department to help unlock the potential of that key industrial cluster for us. But can I ask the Minister, will he confirm whether upstream producers, including those that extract China clay, will be eligible for this support? Will he be able to provide me and my constituents some clarity around when those decisions about who receives this support will be clear? And will he outline what steps he is taking to put an industry with high energy costs, again, ineligible for BICs upstream, and facing huge challenges with foreign dumping practices and, in many cases, significant environmental and legacy pension liabilities due to the labour-intensive nature of this workforce? What steps is he taking to ensure that we put that industry on a more sustainable footing?
Lib Dem spokesman Joshua Reynolds.
Thank you, Dr Morrison. A pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'd like to congratulate the petitioner for securing 109,000 signatures on their petition, as well as the honourable member for Lichfield for bringing it before us today. Now, I thought, Mr Chairman, when I had written a speech about bricks, I was going to be one of the only members to talk about them, but then I noticed the member for North West Leicestershire and the honourable member for Newcastle-under-Lyme in their places, and realised I was definitely not going to be the first. Bricks are the nation's favourite building material. They are durable, they are beautiful, and they are woven into every constituency across the United Kingdom. Walk through any of our constituencies and you'll be walking past beautiful brick-built homes, terraces built to last, many of them over a century old, still standing, still loved, and still lived in. And the piece about being over a century old is the first point that I want to raise to the Minister, because in a report published by Create Streets recently, they set out a serious issue when it comes to how we measure carbon in new homes, because the standard assessment assumes that the building will only last 60 years. As we know, bricks do not last 60 years. Assess a brick over a realistic lifespan, 120 years or more, and they perform significantly better when it comes to whole life carbon. But by baking in a 60-year assumption, the standards systematically make bricks look higher carbon than they are and favour materials that look low carbon on day one, but may need significantly more maintenance, replacement, or even demolition early in the planning process. The short-termism that is being experienced there is penalising one of the most durable, repairable materials that we have. This cost is being placed on factories, also because, according again to reports, domestic brick production has fallen from about 2 billion bricks not many years ago to 1.3 billion in 2024. That's a 32% reduction in just a few years. Now, the sector supports thousands of skilled jobs and worth over £8 billion. So where we've seen some brick factories closing already, if more follow, we need to make sure that we do not simply import them, adding risks to the supply chain, transport emissions, whilst hollowing out our British industry. This, unfortunately, is being made harder, not easier, for British manufacturers. The UK is already the single largest importer of Indian bricks, as we've already heard, and the trade agreement that this government has signed with India will take away the remaining protected tariffs on those bricks imported to zero. Oh, well, of course.
Thank you, Dr Morrison. The Honourable Gentleman rightly points out the Indian trade deal, and he's right about the environmental and economic impacts, but there's also the social impacts, which is too many of the factories that are making those bricks over in India and in Pakistan are in fact using what we would consider modern slavery and indentured labour, and the efficacy of what we're doing also surely ought to be at the forefront of any decision that the Minister makes about how we build houses in this country.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention. He is correct about the social impacts and the modern slavery elements that we may see in bricks that are coming over from outside of the United Kingdom. In fact, on the Business and Trade Select Committee recently, we heard about how the Modern Slavery Act, introduced many years ago, was a good start, had the full support of the House, but at the same time, the declaration requirements that are within it are not strong enough. A company can say, yes, we are importing things which potentially have potentially been made via modern slaves, and that is okay. That is satisfying the requirements. What we need to see here is a new piece of legislation to ensure that companies cannot be importing items that they know or feel have been made using slavery. We also want to come to the question, when we talk about bricks, to what the British public actually want to see, Mr Chairman. In visual preference research, bricks were preferred by 60% of the population when asked to compare two proposed buildings, one made out of bricks and one not. that is very, very clear across age, across gender, across religion, and across political affiliations. At the very moment where we're trying to build more homes, we're pushing developers away from building the material that the majority of the British public want to live in. And brick makers are caught in the same energy trap as the whole of the ceramic sector. Firing clay takes enormous heat, and that heat comes from gas. But because the government's flagship energy relief policy is designed around electricity, gas-intensive makers are largely excluded. So the same industry is squeezed from multiple directions, penalising carbon accounting for undervaluing its products, shutting out suppliers in the United Kingdom and favouring suppliers overseas, and then the energy-intensive issue. So I have 4 questions to ask the Minister. Firstly, I ask if he will work with colleagues across government to review the 60-year reference period for whole-life carbon assessments, adopting a longer, more realistic lifespan so we do not create a de facto ban on bricks by accident. Secondly, will he commit the government that sustainability standards will not rule out quality, durability, or repairable materials that people love? Thirdly, asking the Minister to support cleaner brick production here at home rather than importing them from overseas and the jobs and the emissions being sent abroad. And fourthly, will the gas-intensive brick and ceramics industry finally be brought into the proper support that they need via the government supercharger scheme so these firms can compete on a level playing field? Because bricks, Mr. Chair, are not relics. They are well used, they are beautiful, they are durable, they are repairable, and they are genuinely part of what makes Britain great. We should be building more homes in neighbourhoods that last for our children and our grandchildren, and we should stop penalising the material that does exactly that.
Shadow Minister Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mearson, and I have to say that it's an honour to follow such an interesting speech about bricks. And can I start by congratulating Hayley and all the other petitioners and the Petitions Committee itself, the member for Lichfield, for bringing this important issue into Parliament this afternoon, because it has been a really interesting debate, and I think it's fair to say that the efforts that the petitioners have really made sure that the concerns of workers, the concerns of manufacturers, the concerns of suppliers, local communities that depend on the ceramics industry have truly been heard in Parliament this afternoon. And it's clear that the ceramics sector is facing a number of existential pressures, including, and in particular, their high energy costs, but also burdensome regulation and rising labour costs. And we've heard a range of very valuable contributions from honourable members this afternoon, and it has truly come across how important this industry is, not just in Staffordshire, but in many other parts of the UK. And I was fascinated to hear about Scotland and Cornwall and Stroud and the number of businesses in the ceramic sector. And very welcome to hear from my right honourable friend from Stone, Great Worley and Penkridge, who made a powerful contribution on behalf of a sector where he has first-hand experience working. And so I think what we learnt, Dr. Mearson, is that the ceramics industry is not simply another manufacturing sector. It's a source of highly skilled employment, it's a proud part of our industrial heritage, and it's a significant contributor to our economy. And for generations, British ceramics have been recognised all around the world for their quality, for their craftsmanship, for their innovation. But it's clear that the industry faces particular challenges because it's particularly energy intensive. The high temperatures that kilns need means that the industry cannot simply find at short notice alternative sources of energy or switch on and off when prices fluctuate. They are uniquely exposed to very high energy costs. And so the recent challenges facing well-known firms within the industry should serve as a warning. Now, the supercharger scheme is a sticking plaster. It is a sticking plaster on the damage which has been caused by the Energy Secretary's net zero policies, which have driven up the cost of energy, piling them onto businesses. And because of the costs of net zero, this government has imposed on the businesses themselves, they have been required to come forward with a £120 million subsidy for the industry. I won't give way given how tight we've been for time, but on this side, I hope members will welcome that we have a clear and credible plan to cut energy bills, to reduce regulation and to lower taxes. We have a cheap power plan that will cut household energy bills by £200 a year. It will cut electricity bills by 20% for businesses. That could save ceramics businesses a large amount of money, save the average restaurant £5,500, the average pub £1,100. And we would achieve this by axing the carbon tax in full, including the UK emissions trading scheme and carbon price support. We would also scrap the renewables obligation certificate scheme, which would free up money currently being used to fund those payments through general taxation. And we will back the North Sea and get Britain drilling again, unlocking homegrown energy and generating an estimated 2.5 billion in additional tax revenues each year.
On gas, would you allow very briefly?
I'm very tight for time, but if you insist.
I'm just wondering, because we've heard a lot from the Honourable Ladies' parties on their cheap power plan. Can I just check though, from the ceramics sector perspective, is it her intention that the gas drilled from the North Sea would be specifically ring-fenced and sold at a below-market price to the sectors like the ceramic sector in Stoke-on-Trent and around the country in order to benefit from that? Or would they still be subject to that gas being sold to them via the international market?
It would mean that we would have to import less from countries outside the UK because we would have our own supply. Now, I don't want to intrude on the arguments within the governing party, but I just call out the fact that that it doesn't make sense to leave our own gas in the ground. These are precisely the kinds of policies, the policies I've been outlining, that the energy-intensive sectors such as ceramics have been calling for. If we're serious about protecting the British ceramics industry, we need to act now to cut the cost of industrial energy. So I'm going to ask the Minister a couple of questions. We've heard a bit about the challenge from imports, so it'd be interesting to hear from him what representations this industry has made to the Trade Remedies Authority. And I would also ask him directly whether the government would support the cheap power plan that would cut business energy costs and therefore abandon the ideological policies that are driving proud sectors such as ceramics into decline, because the future of a great British industry and all the livelihoods that it supports are too important to ignore.
Minister.
Thank you very much, Dr Murison. A pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I think I'd like to take this moment to thank everybody who's contributed to the debate, and I hope that those people observing us from the public gallery today will have seen, they have seen, I'm sure, that there is huge support in Parliament for the ceramics industry, for them, for their communities, and for their jobs as well. And I'm very grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Lichfield, for securing the debate, but of course I'm incredibly grateful to Hayley as well for organising the petition. And I'm sure that many of her petitioners will have been following this debate, and they will also have seen the support here of members in this room, but will have heard of the support of Ceramics UK and the GMB trade union as well for the sector. And of course, there have been a number of speeches around a number of issues, and I will endeavour to try and address all of those issues. But if I summed up the entire debate in one line, it was probably put best by, or more succinctly by the member for Newcastle under Lyme, which was essentially, thank you for the 120 million, can I have some more? To which I have a short answer, which is you're welcome, and I want to do more. So maybe I can just talk a bit about what that more might be, but also address some of the issues that we're concerned, because I do recognise that more needs to be done. Now, I think the pride of the communities that we've heard today is very important to recognise, because the ceramics industry is integral to the history and heritage of so many communities from around the whole country. And of course, Staffordshire is the home of the ceramics industry, but it spans the whole country. And we heard that it takes in, of course, the China clay pits in Cornwall, right up to the communities of the north of Scotland as well. And it represents a very diverse range of subsectors. Bricks, pipes, tiles and tableware, of course, and advanced technical ceramics, with many applications in sectors such as energy, defence, medical and technology. But today I'm most grateful for the application in air conditioning filtration systems. So thank you, ceramics industry, for that. But of course, the ceramics industry represents some great traditional and heritage tableware as well. And I think it's very possible to value things not only for their utility but for their beauty, as we heard from the member for Stroud. So I will reveal I'm quite a fan of traditional Staffordshire stoneware. But I also have a very special Dunoon mug with a Union Jack on it, and I just want to let the public gallery know that I use it every morning for my first cup of tea as well. Now, we heard from the member for North Stafford about the lifetime assessment of bricks, and we also heard that from the front bench spokesperson for the Liberal Democrats as well. And I just want to be clear that I am very aware of the disadvantage that is placed on bricks with a short lifetime assessment. I have bricks in my house that are over 200 years old and doing very sterling service. So I am interested to hear more from representation from members around the House about that issue. And of course, we've talked a lot about ceramics, but the member for Broxtowe, I think, made a much wider point about manufacturing in her area, in the East Midlands. And actually, the issues facing ceramics are issues that have faced manufacturing industries around the country. High energy costs, import of cheap goods, challenges with decarbonisation. And these challenges have been exacerbated by the geopolitical instability that we've seen due to the invasion of Ukraine, the conflict in the Middle East, which have put pressure on our energy prices. Now, the ceramics industry has continued to demonstrate resilience. The people who work in the industry have demonstrated resilience. But I was very sad recently to learn of the closure of the job losses at Denby Pottery, an area on which I work closely with the member for Amber Valley, and which she represented so well here, but also the closure of a tunnel kiln at Armitage Shanks as well. And I personally want to pass on my sympathies to all workers, families and local communities that were impacted by those firms, but also, as we heard, at Royal Stafford and Heraldic Pottery as well. Now, manufacturing has now ceased at Denby Pottery, and the administrators were unable to find a buyer. And my officials at the Department for Business and Trade worked diligently with the administrators as to take forward the process. The government's priority now is to ensure that all affected workers are given the support that they need. And I would like to commend Fran, Kate and Daisy, as we heard, and wish them every success with their new venture. And I realise that the words that I've said may sound somewhat clinical to workers and communities who are so rightly proud of Denby. And so I want to really take this opportunity to say how sorrowful I am that Denby's closed and that those workers and the local community can no longer work there. And that's why I'm so determined that we will fix some of the problems with the underpinning of the business environment, not only for ceramics but other parts of industry as well. And so we move on to the ceramic industry support scheme, which was mentioned by so many members. The member for Amber Valley thanked many people in the creation of that scheme. You know, our Right Honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, played such an important role, but she wasn't able to thank herself. And so I'd like to thank her on behalf of all of us, because I do wonder if that scheme would have been brought forward so speedily if it wasn't for the work that she'd done. And I think the important thing here is to recognise is that it's a great vote of confidence by government in the ceramics industry. It's an industry that we are determined to work with to support in decarbonisation. And I want to thank all of my parliamentary colleagues who advocated for it. A number of people raised issues around the design of the scheme. My honourable friend, the member for Stoke-on-Trent North, my honourable friend, the member for Stoke-on-Trent South, around eligibility and consultees and so on. And I want to reassure them that we're determined that the scheme will have the maximum eligibility to enable firms to win support, both for capital and operating expenses around their decarbonisation, and to make that decarbonisation make sense as well. And perhaps this is an opportune time really to firmly put down some of the myths around government policy pushing up the price of electricity. Of course, that's not the case at all. The UK was left in a position after the previous government of high electricity costs, both for industry and for domestic consumers, because our electricity market is dependent on the price of gas. The cheapest form of electricity we have is solar. The second cheapest is onshore wind. The third cheapest is offshore wind. And that's why the government's Clean Power 2030 mission is designed specifically to give this country a competitive advantage, a strategic competitive advantage in electricity price from the 2030s onwards. But it's managing that period from now to 2030 that is particularly challenging, because during that period of time, our electricity is still set to a great extent by the gas price. And so for economic reasons alone, and to ensure we have a competitive business environment, we need to work through that. Yes, I'd be happy to give way.
For giving way, because I wanted to ask him about the auction price that the Energy Secretary set today for offshore wind, which I understand is £120 per megawatt hour for offshore wind, and that sounds very high to me.
Thank you, Dr. Murison. Yes, of course, and this also replays some of the conversations that we've had on the floor of the House as well. And ultimately, it's important to remember that the prices that we're quoting take into account both the capital and operating costs. And our existing gas fleet also would require renewal if it was to continue beyond the mid-2030s, and there would therefore be a capital and operating cost element for that as well. This last intervention, I'll just take it.
I think we're all giving way. To share my disbelief that the Tories continue to trot out this line that we're auctioning off wind power at a high price, while simultaneously neglecting to mention the levelised cost of electricity for thermal power, which is at least as high and takes a lot longer to deploy. So let's bust that myth once and for all, shall we?
Well, I thank my honourable friend. He put it exactly right. We need to take both capital and operating costs into account for this. But fundamentally, it comes down to a belief or a view, or in my case, sort of looking at the economic evidence and corporate finance. Is it possible to decarbonise and reindustrialise? Yes, of course it is, and that's precisely what we want to do. There's no one in industry asking for us to tear up climate policy. They're using it to invest, and they've invested £100 billion since the general election. On the basis of that. Now, many people mentioned the supercharger scheme. It currently supports around 10% of the ceramics industry. I realise that's not, well, I realise it's 10%, it's not 100%, quite obviously. But the recent uplift in the scheme to 90% has benefited those members. And of course, the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme will offer further support on advanced and technical ceramics from 2027, but backdated for the current year, reducing electricity bills by up to £40 per megawatt hour. Now, I'm going to continue, but I'm going to address a point that the Right Honourable Member for Stone, Greatwell and Penkridge raised. And I think he focused very much on those parts of the sector that are unable to electrify. I'm very concerned about that as well. So larger brick kilns, or indeed the member for Lichfield's sanitary ware in his constituency, some of those items are very difficult to electrify. The main decarbonisation options on the table are probably hydrogen or biogas, which wasn't mentioned today but potentially could be a solution. But it's important that the businesses remain competitive and also able to raise the capital until such a period of time. So I want to reassure him I'm very focused on that. I'm not pretending that processes that can't be electrified can be, but it's electrification first where that can happen. But I realise I do need to work with the brick sector and others, and I'm concerned currently about capacity utilisation in the brick sector, which was something other people mentioned because, of course, it makes everything much more difficult. Now, many people talked about in relation to international trade. I think, or I presume that all of us in this room are in favour of free trade on a level playing field basis. But it was unfair trade that I think was referred to particularly. And again, this can be an issue of energy where companies in countries overseas have access to energy from sources that we wouldn't use in the UK, such as Russian gas, or have inappropriate labour practices, as we've heard as well. And clearly those, when we take a decision to enter into a free trade scheme and choose to liberalise tariffs, the government is always very cognizant of the overall economic benefit to the country. But ultimately, we do want free trade. And the Shadow Minister did ask about interaction with the Trade Remedies Authority, which is our means of correcting that. And I'm incredibly keen to continue to encourage the sector to engage with the Trade Remedies Authority. If there are any difficulties with that, I want to know about it. Go on, I shall allow one more intervention.
The honourable gentleman did ask for information about a problem, so could I just let him know that the investigation process for calculating injury is incredibly arduous. I believe in the last investigation, only 2 companies were able to take part because of the demands that were placed upon them, both bureaucratically and in cost. So simplifying that process of the investigation would allow more companies to participate and provide evidence so that the better, the relief that was then given by the TRA would be much more in line with what the sector and the economy needs.
Okay, I thank you for his intervention. It's a very reasonable point. The Trade Remedies Authority has taken some steps recently to try and speed up and reduce the cost of the process. Though I do understand it's particularly difficult in this sector where there are so many small businesses. That's often where a trade association might have a role. But I will continue to work with the sector to understand their issues there and to help encourage and support them to take a case to the Trade Remedies Authority where they feel that there are unfair trading practices. The member for Stockton-on-Trent Central, as he's just spoken, he thanked me for my engagement on his private member's bill. I can assure him I will continue to engage with him on his private member's bill. Now, the ceramics industry has, of course, faced many great difficulties in the business environment, as many of our manufacturing industries have. And so the measures that we are taking to support the business environment, I am sure, will support other parts of our manufacturing sector as well, because just as people in the potteries are proud to be potters, so people in other manufacturing areas of the country.
Order. There's a division in the Commons. Okay. I'm suspending the sitting for 15 minutes. That's a pain in the neck. That's coming back, everyone. The sitting is resumed. Minister.
Thank you very much, Dr Murison, and I won't detain members for very much longer. Now, earlier, the member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross mentioned Harold Wilson, former Prime Minister, of course, and Wilson did many great things indeed, but one thing that he did was have an extremely strong focus on British manufacturing. And as we heard from the member for Lichfield, he talked about the moment that we have now for reindustrialisation. And unashamedly, I lay claim to having introduced that word into the lexicon recently, and I'm delighted at how quickly it's caught on. But there are a few more words I would like to introduce and hope that people might follow me as well. And these are about increasing British productive capacity, improving British productivity, increasing our exports and our balance of trade to improve our manufacturing competitiveness, so that we reindustrialise, so that we provide good jobs for working people, so that we put pride back in working communities around the country. And in the case of the ceramics industry, I'm very much looking forward to working with parliamentary colleagues to ensure that this industry continues to be a great British industry into the future.
Dave Robertson to wind up.
Thank you, Dr Morrison. Pleasure to be able to sum up this debate, if I can. I'm actually going to go a little bit out of order with my thanks to honourable members for their contribution, because I do want to start with my honourable friend for Amber Valley. It's been an incredibly difficult year for her constituents and for her, and throughout all of it, I know I've been proud to call her a friend throughout all of the difficulty that she will have faced. And she does great credit to her constituents and this House by her hard work in this area. Moving on to the other contributions, the Right Honourable Member for Stone, Great Whalley and Penkridge. Again, yet another time when we've come to a debate and we are again forcefully agreeing on the same points. Normal service will be resumed very soon. But the points he made about identity and the need to increase exports are well met, and I'm sure common to many of the people in the chamber today. The Honourable Member for Caithness, Sutherland and Easter Ross, again, was really quite right to bring up the idea of the high-skilled jobs that the ceramics industry provides, and actually the link to his visitor economy, although if he does want me to go that far north, he might have to take me to a distillery as well. To my honourable friends for Stoke-on-Trent Central, Newcastle-under-Lyme, Stoke-on-Trent North and Stoke-on-Trent South, you can never expect to come to one of these debates and not hear the Stokies and Newcastle-under-Lyme coming at you with the importance of ceramics to their area and the centrality of it to both the North Staffordshire identity and to its economy. But it was also fantastic to hear them talking about advanced industry, advanced ceramics, about the growth potential of the industry and actually how the government can support that through better procurement and through action on backstamping. The Honourable Member for Mid-Cheshire, again, focus on job skills and growth and the fact that the ceramics industry is not just some place we need to help, is actually if we can get the support right, it can drive our economy going forwards into this century and beyond. The Honourable Member for Stroud's speech was excellent, I thought, in showing that these are not the jobs of last resort. People want to work with their hands. People want to make things. People want to work with ceramics. And I think, again, being able for us to say that we're going to support this industry, we're going to drive this industry forward and provide those high-skilled, high-quality jobs that people really want to be involved with would be remiss for me to not remark on. The Honourable Member for Broxtowe, my honourable friend for Broxtowe, again, really important to raise the £120 million package that the government's announced and also to talk about the identity of place that comes with, and I'm actually unaware of any other industry that has that identity of place being so linked into the industry which supports it. My honourable friend for North West Leicestershire wouldn't expect to do a ceramics debate without her talking about bricks. And not just bricks and the importance of bricks and the importance of those jobs that it brings to her area, but the importance of the industries that ceramics support, particularly in construction. My honourable friend for Austell and Newquay, again, mentioning, he's over this side, you've moved! Raising, yes, the £120 million support package, but it was also fantastic to hear somebody else talking about the impact that dumping has on the ceramics industry. With many thanks to the Lib Dem spokesperson for again talking about bricks. I think the point he made about the assessment of carbon costs is really valuable, especially when we talk about the quality there. He was talking about 120 years might be more appropriate for a brick. That might be true for an international brick. I think the bricks that are made in the UK, because they are of such high quality, 120 years is very, very, very conservative as an estimate. The Right Honourable Member for West Worcestershire, I actually took down a quote as she said it. This is not just another sector. And I think anybody who's been here today can really understand this is not just another sector. It is recognised the world over for exactly that quality that I mentioned, and it was fantastic to see that. We do significantly disagree on the myth that North Sea gas will cut on gas, but fortunately I expect to have many more opportunities to rehearse that until we finally get that party to see sense. Finally, to the Minister, to the Member for Stockton North, I think he will eventually become sick of the sight of us all banging down his door to talk about ceramics. I don't care. But it would also be remiss of me not to remark on his willingness to work with MPs, to work with parliamentarians, to be listening, and actually to take that listening and turn it into action. We're still clearly not there with the design of the scheme. We're still clearly not there, and we're not going to go away, and we're going to keep asking for more. And I think his quote about the Honourable Member for Newcastle under Lyme saying, can we have some more? Yeah, shamelessly. And we'll keep banging on at that, but I know we've got a partner in that fight, and we will hopefully be able to turn our shoulders to the wheel and continue to get the sport in the right place for this great British industry.
This House has considered E-petition 764785 relating to support for the ceramics industry. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting stands suspended.